Will the cookie of my youth be upended by some brand new upstart sweet thing? We're about to find out. So the cookie of my youth is Mrs. Fields. If you lived in a certain time, in a certain generation, in certain places, that's the place you went to go get cookies, mainly in the mall. If you're walking through, you smell the cookies in the air, it drew you to the store, you got some nibblers or you got a big one to either walk through the mall with or to take home with you. Now, over the years, the number of Mrs. Fields locations across the country have declined, but there's still quite a few out there. Now there's some upstart trying to kick Mrs. Fields out the bed. You might have seen this brand new spot called Crumbl Cookies pop up in your area. They're pretty brand new. According to their website, their first store opened in Logan, Utah in 2017. And now there are almost 300 locations all across the country. So I've seen this Crumbl place and I looked at it online and I thought to myself, I gotta try this out. But does the fancy looking Crumbl cookie beat out my Mrs. Fields that I grew up with? So now it's time for an exclusive Kindle B Foodie Fix taste test. I hopped into Hoopty and got the most comparable cookie I could think of, the chocolate chip. Oh yeah, and these are the milk chocolate chips, not the semi-sweet. So the first stop of my trip was Crumbl Cookies. Here's the interesting thing about Crumbl. When you go into the store, there is no menu. The only thing that you can see are the people working behind the counter and the cookies they have available on that day. And on top of that, when I walked into the store, there weren't any prices either. I initially asked for one of the smaller chocolate chip cookies, but the person at the front said, oh, those are just for catering. Okay. So I had to get the bigger cookie, and that was fine. I got 2 of them, and they cost $10, $5 per cookie. Which, by the way, everybody I told about how much the cookie costs, they said, that better be the best tasting cookie ever. Stay tuned and we'll find out. So then I went a few miles away to the trusty Mrs. Fields. This Mrs. Fields location has been at this mall forever, at least 30 years, if not longer. And Mrs. Fields is what it is. You have your selection of cookies, they do have the menu up, you know how much they cost, and they always have a special deal. Buy 2, get 1 free. Buy 3, get 5 free. The Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookie that I bought only cost $2.99. So Crumbl was $5, Mrs. Fields was $2.99. And actually, I could have purchased more Mrs. Fields cookies if I wanted to and saved money. I could have bought 3 of the Mrs. Fields bigger chocolate chip cookies and gotten 2 extra for free. So do the math. That's $2.99 times 3, basically $9, plus 2 extra cookies. I could have gotten 5 cookies for what it cost to get 2 of the Crumbl cookies. All right, so I got the cookies home. Let's get down to business. First of all, Mrs. Fields, old school, traditional. You get it in a bag. It smells like heaven in there. And here is your Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookie. You know what it looks like, and you probably know what it tastes like. So I'm going in. The taste that I know. This is the milk chocolate chip cookie. It needs one more bite. Mrs. Fields gives me what I expect. It is sweet, it is chewy, it is fresh baked, it is delicious. There you go. Of course, we have to have a milk chaser. Quick side note, my wife doesn't drink milk with her cookies. She drinks water. Is that you? Put it in the comments. Matter of fact, when you ask her. Honey, why don't you like milk with your cookies?
Ew, no.
Why?
Because it's horrible.
Water instead of milk.
I'll drink water, I'll drink Kool-Aid, I'll drink Coke. It doesn't matter, but not milk. Ugh.
You weird, man. She's weird. Now let's get to the Crumbl cookie. Oh my gosh. Before I taste it, let's talk about this. Mrs. Fields comes in a bag. There's 1 cookie in this box. Maybe that's why it costs $5, the packaging. And what is it about all of these places going to the pink box? It is something, what do we got? Voodoo Donuts, you got all kinds of places. They all do the pink box. I mean, it's getting a little tired, I'm just saying. If you put the cookie in the bag, maybe it wouldn't cost $5 instead of putting it in the box. But I get it, it's the presentation, it's the feeling of luxury. But now let's open this thing up. This, my friends, is a $5 cookie. And as opposed to the Mrs. Fields cookie, this thing has heft. I mean, you might break your back or strain a muscle trying to lift this thing. You could eat this in one sitting, but then you might be seen as gluttonous. All right, Crumbl, here we go. Interesting. I can see why they call it Crumbl cookies, because my first bite into it, there was that crumble that fell back into the box. and there was a little bite to it. So while it's not as chewy as the Mrs. Fields cookie, it still has some of that texture to it as well. Take a second one. Did you hear that? That was a Crumbl in the box. Okay, I can see the difference. First, more milk. It is much more cakey than the Mrs. Fields cookie. And it does take a little bit longer to get through it, the chew and everything else. But I will say, it's a good cookie. As far as the sweetness level, I would put it on the same par actually as Mrs. Fields. I thought this one may be a little less sweet, but maybe again it's because of the milk chocolate chips instead of the semi-sweet chocolate chips. You have a little crispy and you have chewy. So that's a nice combination. This one's harder than I thought it was going to be because initially I'm thinking, well, maybe the Crumbl cookie because it's $5 and it's a brand new thing that it was just totally gonna flatten out Mrs. Fields. But in my opinion, that's not the case. Here's how I look at it off top. Mrs. Fields is your everyday cookie. If you're just walking through the mall and you want to get a snack, you just want to take something home real quick, you want some nibblers or whatnot, this is where you go. Crumbl is your special occasion cookie because these things are massive first and foremost, and they cost a bit more. So you're not going to go to Crumbl every single day to get a cookie for $5. They're both good cookies, but if I had a choice, if you told me I have to go back and get another one right now, where am I going? I'm going OG. I'm going Mrs. Fields. There's just something about it. Now again, these were taste tests on the chocolate chip cookie. Crumbl has its own different line of cookies and they replace them every day. So you can go back and see what they have, all kinds of different flavors. Mrs. Fields, they're the flavors that you know. You got your chocolate chip, your semi-sweet, you got your oatmeal raisin. You know what you're gonna get at Mrs. Fields. I'm not poo-pooing the Crumbl cookies. Matter of fact, if you have one in your area, I suggest you go and try it for yourself. But if I'm going back for another one, right now, it's still gonna be my old favorite, Mrs. Fields. Have no fear that both of those cookies will be gone in short order. They're not being thrown out or anything. Thank you for watching Foodie Fix. If you have any more suggestions, any comparisons that you would like for me to do, put it in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you love travel, subscribe to my Kindle Bee Travel Tips channel as we go across the country and around the world showing you great places to stay. Thank you for watching. I appreciate the support. And if you want to see more of what's on the Kindle Bee channel, click this video right here and I'll see you over there.